your self-sabotage and you feeling stuck in life is just a sign that you are a failed artist, even if you don't consider yourself a creative person, even if you're not engaged in any artistic pursuit. Now let me explain. In this video, I want to share with you an idea from one of the most underrated and overlooked but most important thinkers of the 20th century. And this idea can provide you with a new perspective, a more constructive perspective on your self-sabotage, on your stuckness, on your inability to move towards your goals. Then at the end, I'm going to present you with a challenge based on this idea. Okay, first, who is the most underrated or one of the most underrated and overlooked thinkers of the 20th century, yet one of the most important? Otto Rank, one of the main figures from Freud's school of psychoanalysis, who, just like his colleagues Carl Jung and Alfred Adler, broke off from the Freudian school. However, unlike Carl Jung and Alfred Adler, who founded their own schools of psychology and ended up being some of the most prominent and popular figures in 20th century psychology, and to this day, some of the most popular psychology figures, Otto Rank didn't create his own school of psychology. He was sort of on a solo journey and was even ostracized by the whole psychoanalytic movement for a long period of time, where he was accused that a lot of his writings are based off of his almost madness. So not quite the best PR followed Otto Rank throughout his career. However, today we can say in retrospect that a lot of the best aspects, healthiest, most constructive aspects of modern psychology and psychotherapy were already sort of predicted or initially discussed by Otto Rank, even though he receives very little credit for those ideas. Now that we have this sort of backstory and who the person is, let's talk about the idea of the failed artist. Because you are a failed artist if you're dealing with self-sabotage, if you are feeling stuck in life. And as I said, even if you're not engaged in any artistic pursuit, even if you don't consider yourself a creative person. Otto Rank talked about self-creation. And one of his most beautiful contributions was that he talked about the process of personal growth, about the process of personality development as a creative and artistic process. Well, he, inside of this process, in this journey of life, he distinguishes between two important types, the neurotic type and the artistic type. Now, let me say straight away that no one is just a neurotic type or just an artistic type. We all have both of these. It's just it's a matter of which type is the most dominant one, which type is at a certain point in our journey ruling and leading our lives. Well, the artistic type is basically an artist who doesn't create. And this is the essence of what we want to discuss. Both the neurotic type and the artistic type are, as Otto Rank says, strong-willed types. I'm in a video version of this idea of Algo talking how your self-sabotage is actually misguided and misdirected strength. But now we are diving into this idea a bit deeper. The thing is, if life is a creative process, if personal growth and personality development is a creative process, we can go a step further and add Otto Rank's idea of the separation. He talked about life also being a sequence of separations. First, we have the physical separation from the mother by being expelled, quote unquote, from the mother's womb and the cord being cut, the physical separation, the first, also maybe the most traumatic separation. He also wrote about that, but it's not particularly important right now to go deeper into that. We can say life is a sequence of separations. We have the first, most intense physical separation. Then we have separation from the family at some point, separation from the kindergarten friends, separation from neighborhood friends, separation from certain belief systems, so on and so forth. Physical, social, psychological, emotional separations. Well, if we are artists on the journey of life as a creative process, then our self-creation requires separation. So we create a new moment in our lives. We create a new chapter only to the extent that we are ready to say no, that we are ready to break away from something, to separate ourselves from something, to say no to a different path, a different opportunity. So it's separation and negation so that I could proceed forward and affirm a certain path, opportunity, idea. What does this mean? Self-creation is always also a destructive process. I'm breaking away from at least part of my current life, my current self, my current world, and I'm negating certain opportunities and paths that are out there. Rank said that this produces guilt. Now we can connect him to Soren Kierkegaard, the OG of existentialism, who said that guilt and anxiety are inseparable. And then we have Otto Rank, who largely inspired the existential humanistic movement in psychology, who largely inspired existential psychotherapy. So here are always these existential elements of anxiety, struggle for individuality, destructive aspects of self-creation. All of these are existential themes. We don't have to call them existentialists. We don't have to subscribe and join the existentialist club. This is not like Stoicism, you know. Am I throwing a bit of shade at Stoicism right now? Maybe, yes. Maybe whoever, you know, the overall communities, maybe they are too strict on, you know, wanting people to be Stoics. Existential thinking doesn't require you to be an existentialist. You don't have to subscribe to a very concrete and maybe rigid set of rules. We have just common concerns. And now we are presenting particular set of answers to those concerns. But this is not an ideology. Okay, back from the side note to the main course. If anxiety and guilt are inseparable from each other, and if, back to Rank, guilt is always present in self-creation, because we have to tolerate the fact that we are negating something and that we are destroying something or breaking away from something. If all of this is the case, then, as I use the word tolerate, it's difficult to tolerate the demands of self-creation. And this is where we have the neurotic and the artistic type. Artistic type tolerates better the guilt involved in self-creation by proceeding forward. By outward focus, important to note. By translating his or her internal conflict onto an external project, while the neurotic is stuck in the moment of guilt. And even though some of you are not perceiving this as guilt, you are perceiving discomfort. Maybe you're perceiving anxiety. Maybe you're perceiving a sense of being overwhelmed. But Rank would argue that beneath all of this is guilt at the fact, once again, that to move forward, to commit yourself fully to that project that you've been hesitating to commit yourself fully to a certain path, while you're also able to see a couple of different paths that are almost equally constructive and healthy, while you're perceiving that this involves negation and destruction, separation, breaking away, it creates guilt that maybe you are not fully conscious of. That would be Rank's proposition. And if we could put this in simplest terms, saying yes to your life and creating that life, that particular vision of life, and building that path requires the ability to say no to other paths and opportunities and existing elements of your world, and to tolerate the guilt of saying no. I don't know if this was a lot, but I'm hoping it's helpful so far. I'm hoping it lands to some extent. Well, where do we go from here? As I said, I have a challenge for you. One thing about Rank, which I immensely appreciate, but actually it's one of the things that made him unpopular, is that he doesn't give you a framework. Okay, now from here, follow these next 10 steps, or here is a very exact framework even for therapists. So therapists and counselors who are immensely inspired by Rank, they are challenged to take these insights and find creative ways of implementing them in working with people. Now, I'm not a licensed therapist, but I've been working with people and I've been immensely inspired by Rank and also, for example, by Rollo May, who was also inspired by Rank and took the creative project of implementing Rank's insights into his own psychology and into his own work with people as a therapist and a counselor. So, whether you're listening to this as someone who, like myself, works with people, helps people, or you're listening to this as someone who is, at least at the moment, alone on his journey and is trying to help himself or herself, the bad news is there are no clear steps. There is no clear set of steps, no clear framework to now implement this. But the good news is that there is no clear set of steps and that you are asked to engage in the creative process and project of first internalizing this, seeing how this unravels in your life, and then slowly finding out what can you take from this, how can this impact your life, how can this change your life. But if we are to offer one step, and that's the challenge that I was talking about, if we are to offer one step, I would say you are now looking at a task of honestly inquiring, where are you scared to say no? What are you scared to say no to in your life? Let me make this more concrete. Saying no to exciting opportunities, saying no to goals that seem constructive, respectable, honorable. You know, I will admit, for me, at multiple points in my life, it has been scary to say a hard no to dedicating more of my life to pursuit of training martial arts. So you see how it's not always something dramatic. It's scary to say no to a relationship. It's also sometimes scary to say no to a goal that you haven't even scratched the surface of, or you have barely scratched the surface, but it seems interesting. Well, it's scary to say no because of what? Because of that guilt. Because of that guilt. Okay, here is an element of my capacity. I know my capacity as a physically healthy human being to become better at martial arts. I know my capacity to endure physical exhaustion. I know that there is some potential to be uncovered, not as a professional fighter, as a professional martial artist, but as a human who has potential to become way more capable in the sphere of physical competence. Well, it carries a dose of guilt to say no, because I want to spend extra couple of hours writing, or extra couple of hours of speaking to my clients, or extra couple of hours of making educational video material. There is a dose of guilt. That's why it's scary to say no, because it's not always easy to tolerate the guilt. So now the question goes to you. What are you afraid of saying no to? Because even though you're not fully aware of it, you're finding it difficult, or you're anticipating that it's difficult to tolerate the guilt that's integral to saying no. Or existing elements of your life, where are you afraid to make that separation? Is it a belief system? Is it a relationship with or to a person? Is it a relationship with a habit? Is it a relationship with a hobby that isn't serving you anymore? And you need to break away from it to create some space, time, and energy in your life? There are numerous possibilities. But you, as a failed artist, and maybe this is painful to hear, but you as a failed artist, you as an artist who doesn't create, you need to start saying no. And you need to start breaking away and tolerating those separations so that you could actually move forward, so that you could create your life, so that you could say yes continually to the life that you're creating. So that's it, my friends. This one, I'm aware, is a bit, or at least sounds a bit vague or abstract. I definitely will be making more videos on Otto Rank and his ideas, or maybe I should say, I need your feedback if I should make more videos on Otto Rank and his ideas, but to be completely honest, I find so much value in them that I would still make videos even if only one person said that they're interested in learning more about this. In any case, if this sounds abstract, if this sounds a bit too vague, just focus for now on the question. Where are you struggling and or afraid of to say no, or to tolerate the separation from an existing element of your life or yourself? For now, you can focus on that. And until next time, as always, love life, stay strong, never feel sorry for yourself, tolerate the guilt because you do have the capacity to be the artist and the creator of your life. Not just the capacity, but also the responsibility. Light that fire in your heart because it will help you to move forward more passionately as a true artist, and always go beyond. Thank you.